keeping up with the world these days. It's a mental marathon, isn't it? I mean, between the economy going up and down like a roller coaster, the whole social landscape shifting faster than we can blink, and then you throw in all this crazy tech stuff, especially all the talk about AI and what it could do to our minds. It's a lot to process.
Yeah, no kidding. And that's kind of what we're diving into today, right? How do our own minds even work in the middle of all that?
Exactly. So think of this as your cheat sheet to the world of psychology, but not the boring textbook kind. We've sifted through a mountain of expert lectures, like seriously, a mountain, to pull out the really cool, really useful stuff that you can actually apply to your life, like right now.
Yeah, this isn't just about theories and jargon. It's about understanding how psychology sheds light on those everyday things we all deal with: stress, relationships, even figuring out how to be more creative. Our goal here is to extract those aha moments, those little nuggets of insight that can genuinely shift your perspective and give you some practical tools to work with.
And we're not limiting ourselves to just one narrow slice of psychology either. We've got insights from neuroscience, developmental psychology, clinical applications, the whole social psychology scene. It's a pretty broad buffet, all aimed at giving you a clearer picture of how your mind works.
Exactly. It's all about connecting the dots, seeing how these different areas intersect and what they can tell us about ourselves.
So what's on the menu today? We're going to start by tackling something that's way more unreliable than we like to think: our memory, and how that ties into how we make decisions. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of learning and how habits really form the good ones and the ones we'd rather kick to the curb.
After that, we're going to explore some of the keys to actually boosting your happiness and building up that resilience so you can roll with the punches. We'll also take a peek under the hood, into the fascinating world of the brain and how it actually operates. Then we'll unpack all the subtle ways our social environment shapes our thoughts and actions. And last but definitely not least, we'll tackle the elephant in the room: how technology is reshaping our minds, for better or worse. Ready to get started?
Lead the way. What's our first stop?
Okay, first up, memory and how we make decisions, which honestly feels like the foundation for, well, pretty much everything we do, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's remembering where you put your keys to, making big life choices, all of it.
Right. And the way we understand memory changed drastically thanks to Elizabeth Loftus. What she showed us is that memories aren't these fixed, unchangeable recordings. They can be, well, surprisingly easy to mess with.
Wait, so that whole image of our memory as like a perfect video playback, not so accurate.
Not really. One of her most famous studies had people watching a car accident on video. Then afterwards, she asked them questions about it. But here's the catch. The way she worded the questions actually changed what they remembered. Like, if she asked how fast the cars were going when they smashed into each other, they not only estimated higher speeds, but some even swore they saw broken glass, even though there wasn't any in the video. It's called the misinformation effect, basically. New information can actually warp your memory of what happened.
Whoa, hold on. Just one word, like smashed instead of hit, could make people remember something that wasn't even there.
Exactly. So think about that next time you're super sure about something that happened in the past. Your memory's not always as reliable as you think. And what's even crazier, it's not like you're consciously making it up. These false memories, they feel real to the person remembering them.
It's kind of creepy. And what about that Lost in the Mall experiment? That one always blew my mind.
Oh yeah, that one really takes it to another level. So Loftus and her team, they actually implanted completely false memories into people's minds, making them believe they'd been lost in a mall as a kid. And it wasn't just vague feelings. People came up with all these vivid details and even emotions about an event that never actually happened.
That's disturbing. It makes you question everything you think you know.
Hmm.
But okay, what does all this mean for us outside the lab? I can't imagine this is just a fun fact.
Definitely not. If we look at the bigger picture, Loftus's work has completely changed how we think about eyewitness testimony, especially in legal cases. So, imagine a police interrogation. If they're asking leading questions, even unintentionally, they could be planting false memories. Even just hearing media reports or casual conversations could mess with someone's memory before they even get to court.
And in the courtroom itself, how lawyers word their questions could totally sway what a witness remembers.
Exactly. So that's why this research has been a driving force for some big changes in the justice system, like training law enforcement to use more open-ended interview techniques so they don't accidentally lead witnesses, and making sure juries understand that memory isn't foolproof, it's actually pretty fragile. They've even started using things like blind lineups, where the officer running it doesn't know who the suspect is, so they can't accidentally give away any cues.
Okay, so maybe we shouldn't be so quick to trust our memories, or other people's for that matter. And what about that experiencing self versus remembering self thing you mentioned? That was Daniel Kahneman, right?
Yeah, that's another super insightful way to look at how we perceive our lives and make decisions. So Kahneman says there's the part of you that's living in the moment, feeling all the emotions, the sensations, right now. That's the experiencing self. And then there's the part that looks back and evaluates those experiences afterwards. That's the remembering self.
Okay, so the experiencing self is in the now, just soaking it all in. What's the remembering self doing?
Think of it as the storyteller of your life. It takes a past experience and tries to sum it up. But here's the thing. It doesn't just average out all the moments. It focuses on the most intense points, the peaks, and how it all ended. It's called the peak end rule.
The peak end rule. So, like, I might remember a vacation mostly by that one amazing sunset and the delicious final meal, even if the actual travel was stressful or there were a few annoying moments along the way.
Exactly. The remembering self really latches onto those highlights, and this can totally mess with the choices we make. We might choose experiences that we think will create better memories, even if they're not actually that enjoyable in the moment, like planning a trip around seeing a few famous landmarks, even if the travel itself is a nightmare.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. I've totally done that. Push through something awful just to have a good memory later. Okay, so knowing all this, how can we actually use these ideas to improve our lives? You mentioned some real-world applications.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to learning new things, understanding how unreliable memory can be means you need to use study techniques that actually help you fight those distortions. Spaced repetition is great, so is testing yourself. And try studying in different environments. That helps solidify things. Oh, and be careful when studying with friends. It can be helpful, but you might accidentally end up implanting false memories in each other.
That's a good point. We could be reinforcing each other's mistakes.
Right. And like we talked about, these insights are leading to some much needed reforms in the legal world. But for you personally, being aware of this whole experiencing self versus remembering self thing can help you make better decisions. Try to be more present, more tuned in to how you actually feel in the moment, not just how you think you'll remember it later. And when planning something, make sure it's not just about chasing those peak moments. Try to ensure a good ending too.
So pay attention to the whole experience, not just the highlights.
Right. And after big events or even decisions, take some time to think about the whole process, not just the good parts your remembering self is clinging to. That can give you a way more accurate picture of whether it was actually a good experience.
Okay, so memories are messy. Pay attention to the now and the future, and use this stuff to learn better and advocate for a fairer justice system. Got it. So what's next? We talked about how we remember. What about how we learn? It feels like we're all constantly trying to figure that one out.
Totally. And that's where behavioral psychology comes in. Historically, it's been all about our actions, the stuff we can see, and how our environment shapes those actions.
But we also have Paul Bloom, right?
Yeah.
And he's not entirely sold on that strictly environmental view, especially the Skinnerian behaviorism stuff.
Yeah, Bloom's argument is that while behaviorism, especially B.F. Skinner's work, was a huge deal, it kind of ignores what's going on inside our heads, our thoughts, intentions, beliefs, all that internal stuff. He's all about the cognitive revolution, which brought that inner world back into the picture. And now we often combine that with neuroscience findings for a more complete picture.
So it's not just about how we react to things, it's about what's going on up here, too.
Exactly. But Skinner's operating conditioning is still important. It's all about how consequences shape our actions, right?
Okay, let's dive into that a bit. We've got reinforcement, which makes us do things more, and punishment, which makes us do things less. And within those, there are positive and negative versions, right?
Right.
Can you break those down for us, like with real-life examples?
Sure. Positive reinforcement is when you add something good after a behavior to encourage it. Like your boss praising you after you nail a presentation, or a dog getting a treat for sitting. Negative reinforcement is taking away something bad to encourage a behavior. Like hitting snooze on your alarm clock, you're removing that annoying sound.
So adding something good versus taking away something bad, both leading to doing that thing more often. What about punishment, the stuff that makes us do things less?
Well, positive punishment is adding something unpleasant to discourage a behavior. Think speeding ticket. Negative punishment is taking away something good, like your parents confiscating your phone for being a little monster.
Got it. Adding bad, taking away good, both designed to decrease a behavior.
Yeah.
So how does all this work in real life with habits, addiction, even motivation?
Habits, they're all about reinforcement. So many of our routines stick because there's some reward at the end, even if it's just that I did it feeling or the tiny rush you get from checking social media. Addiction. Classic example of positive reinforcement. The drug or whatever it is gives you immediate pleasure or relief from something awful, and boom, your brain's hooked. And think about those workplace incentive programs. Bonuses, recognition, all positive reinforcement to get you working harder.
Makes sense. So if we understand these principles, can we actually use them to change our habits on purpose? Like ditch the bad ones, build good ones, get that self-discipline we all crave.
Absolutely. Here's the game plan. Figure out what's driving your current habits. What are the rewards, both for the good and the bad ones? For bad habits, try to spot the triggers and figure out what reward you're getting. Then swap them for healthier versions that scratch that same itch. For building good habits, pair them with immediate rewards. Want to exercise more? Only allow yourself to listen to that awesome podcast while you're actually sweating it out.
So understand the why behind the habit, then use rewards to your advantage. What about punishment? Can that help us change? You mentioned micro-punishments earlier.
Yeah, but tread carefully with punishment. It can make you feel bad, resentful even, and it doesn't really teach you what you should be doing, just what not to do. If you are going to use it, keep it small and realistic, like donating a few bucks to a cause you hate if you skip your workout. Also, social accountability can be a sneaky form of negative punishment. You don't want to let down those you've committed to.
Oh, totally. Fear of disappointing people is a surprisingly strong motivator. What other tricks can we use?
Behavioral contracts are great. Literally write down your goals, your triggers, and the consequences, good and bad. Makes it more real. Habit tracking, too, like with a journal or app. Seeing those streaks build up is super motivating. And for those big, scary goals, break them down into tiny steps, chunking, it's called, and celebrate those small wins along the way. Oh, and your environment matters. Remove temptations, put visual reminders where you'll see them. Want to read more? Leave that book on your nightstand. Want to work out in the morning? Lay out your gear the night before.
That's all super helpful. It's amazing to see how this learning stuff plays out everywhere, from how those sneaky smartphone notifications give us that little dopamine rush, to workplace incentives, even how smoking cessation programs work.
Exactly. And while Paul Bloom reminds us that we're not just robots reacting to rewards and punishments, this operant conditioning stuff, it's still incredibly powerful for understanding how we work and using that knowledge to live more intentionally.
So we've covered how we remember and how we learn. Now let's talk about something we all want: happiness and resilience. And it feels like psychology has shifted in recent years, from just fixing what's broken to actually figuring out how to thrive.
Absolutely. And a big name in that shift is Martin Seligman, the guy behind positive psychology. He's not so focused on what makes us unwell, but what makes us flourish, what makes us bounce back from tough times.
So instead of just looking at what's wrong, we're looking at what's right and how to cultivate more of that. Tell us about his PERMA model.
Okay, PERMA is Seligman's framework for well-being, the 5 core elements. P is for positive emotions, cultivating joy, gratitude, hope, all those good feelings. E is engagement, finding activities that totally absorb you, where you lose track of time and get that flow state. R is relationships strong, positive connections with people, having a solid support system. M is meaning, having a purpose, feeling like you're part of something bigger, pursuing goals that matter. And A is achievement, setting those meaningful goals and feeling good when you reach them.
Those all sound pretty fundamental to a good life. So how does focusing on these things actually make a difference?
Research shows that when you actively engage with these PERMA elements, you tend to be more satisfied with life, experience more positive emotions, and are better at handling challenges, like practicing gratitude, which is under positive emotions, or volunteering for a cause you care about, which taps into meaning. Both of those have been linked to lower stress and anxiety. It's about building on your strength, not just fixing your weaknesses.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
But we also have Thomas Insel, right? He's all about the brain circuits and the biological side of mental disorders. How does that fit in with this whole well-being focus?
Insel's work reminds us that there's a physical side to this, too. He says lots of mental health issues come from disruptions in specific brain circuits. And he's a big advocate for early intervention, like catching physical health problems early. Things like mindfulness programs in schools, even routine mental health screenings, all part of that proactive approach.
So it's not an either-or thing. We can build our well-being while also acknowledging the biological factors.
Exactly. They can work together, even complement each other. Building a strong sense of well-being might actually protect you from some mental health issues. And understanding the biology can lead to more effective treatments when they are needed.
That makes sense. Okay, so what are some practical things we can do to apply this positive psychology stuff?
Lots of simple things. Gratitude is huge. Take a few minutes each day, maybe before bed, and list 3 things you're grateful for. That can shift your whole perspective. Setting meaningful goals and breaking them down into smaller steps can give you a sense of direction and accomplishment. Figure out what activities put you in that flow state and schedule time for them. Make an effort to nurture those relationships with people who lift you up. And try mindfulness. Even a few minutes of focused breathing a day can help you manage stress and be more present.
Those are all doable. But it's important to remember these are tools for boosting well-being, not replacing professional help if someone is really struggling.
Right. These practices are great, but if you're dealing with serious mental health challenges, seeing a professional is crucial.
Okay, we've explored our minds, our emotions, all that good stuff. Now let's get physical. Literally. Let's talk about the brain. Neuroscience has come a long way in helping us understand how this amazing organ works, how it creates our thoughts, feelings, actions.
It really has. And a leader in this field is Nancy Canwisher. She uses fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging, to basically map out the brain and figure out which areas are specialized for different tasks.
So like different parts of the brain are dedicated to specific things.
Exactly. One of her biggest discoveries was the fusiform face area, or FFA for short. It's basically your brain's face detector. This area lights up like crazy when we see faces, which means our brains have a special module just for recognizing those. She's also found areas for recognizing bodies, places, you name it. The idea is that our brains are organized into these specialized networks to process different kinds of information super efficiently.
So it's not just one big general computer, it's more like a Swiss Army knife with specialized tools.
That's a great way to put it. And while Canwish's work has been mostly about visual processing, this specialization likely applies to emotions too. Like, the amygdala is known for handling fear, the insula is involved in disgust and empathy. So yeah, our emotional experiences probably rely on specialized circuits too.
Wow, our brains come preloaded with all this amazing software.
Now, you mentioned V.S. Ramachandran and his work with neurological disorders. How does studying things going wrong in the brain teach us about how it's supposed to work?
Ramachandran's approach is super clever. By studying people with rare brain conditions, he learns a ton about the basic building blocks of consciousness and self-awareness. Take phantom limb pain, where people feel sensations, even pain, in a limb that's been amputated. Or Capgras delusion, where people believe their loved ones have been replaced by imposters. These might seem weird, but they tell us so much about how our brains construct our reality.
Phantom limb pain always seems so bizarre to me. How can you feel pain in something that's not there?
Ramachandran showed that even after a limb is gone, the brain's map of that body part can still be active. He even invented this thing called a mirror box, where patients see a reflection of their intact limb, which can actually trick the brain into relieving the phantom pain. It's proof that the brain has this internal body map that can be manipulated. That's wild.
Yeah.
And Capgras delusion, that whole imposter thing, what does that tell us?
It suggests recognizing people isn't just about seeing their face. There's a disconnect between the visual part and the emotional part. So someone might see their mom, know it's her, but not feel that warm, familiar feeling, which leads to that creepy imposter idea. It shows that our reality relies on different brain regions working together. The visual and the emotional need to sync up for us to feel like we truly recognize someone.
It's like all these parts need to be in harmony. And speaking of the brain changing, what about neuroplasticity? That's the brain's ability to adapt, right?
Exactly. It's the brain rewiring itself throughout life based on experiences, learning, even injury. It's not fixed after childhood. It's constantly being shaped.
So when we say practice makes perfect, there's a real neurological basis for that.
Totally. When you practice something, the neural pathways involved get stronger and more efficient. It's true for physical skills, like playing an instrument, and mental skills, like learning a language. And neuroplasticity is crucial for recovering from injuries and trauma. Therapies like CBT and EMDR can help create new, less painful associations with bad memories. Even mindfulness and meditation can change brain connections related to anxiety. Our brains are incredibly adaptable.
It's like understanding the hardware reveals the potential for software upgrades.
Great analogy. It gives us a framework for how we work now and hope for intentional change in the future.
Okay, so we've zoomed in on the brain. Now let's zoom out and talk about our social world.
Social psychology is fascinating because it shows how much we're influenced by the situations we're in and the people around us.
Absolutely. And a classic, albeit controversial example of this is Philip Zimbardo's Stanford Prison Experiment.
Oh, yeah, that one's famous. Or infamous, maybe. Can you give us the rundown for those who haven't heard of it? Back in 1971, Zimbardo created a mock prison in the basement of Stanford's psychology department. He got some college student volunteers, all deemed psychologically healthy, and randomly assigned them to be either guards or prisoners. The idea was to study the effects of power in a simulated prison environment. The guards were basically told to just maintain order, nothing too
And
specific.
it went south pretty quickly. All right. I heard the experiment was supposed to last much longer, but had to be cut short.
Yeah, it was bad. In just a few days, the guards started acting all oppressive and abusive toward the prisoners, making up rules, giving out harsh punishments, the whole 9 yards. The prisoners became withdrawn, depressed, really messed up. It was supposed to last 2 weeks, but they had to shut it down after 6 days because it was so damaging.
Wow. It's scary how quickly people can fall into those roles and how much it can change their behavior. There were, and still are, lots of ethical concerns about that study.
Definitely. The Stanford prison experiment is super controversial ethically, and people are still debating it. But it definitely highlighted how powerful the situation can be, how authority structures can influence us, and how we can develop blind spots when given power over others. It showed how our environment and the roles we play can override our individual personalities and values.
So it wasn't that the guards were all bad guys to begin with, but the situation brought out the worst in them.
Exactly. And social psychology has continued to explore how these situational forces and group dynamics affect us, even in less extreme settings. Think about conformity pressure. How often do you go along with the group even if you disagree? Or obedience to authority. Those Milgram experiments showed how easily people would inflict pain on others just because someone in charge told them to. And then there's de-individuation, where being part of a big group can make you feel less responsible for your actions.
It's like we're constantly battling between our own morals and what the people around us are doing. You mentioned corporate misconduct as an example.
Yeah, like the Enron scandal. It's usually not just a few bad people. You often see lots of people engaging in unethical or illegal things because they're under pressure to meet impossible goals, and the company culture might even reward that kind of behavior. So the pressure, the group norms, the authority figures, all that creates an environment where people can easily justify doing bad things.
It's pretty unsettling to realize how much our environment can affect our morals. So how can we resist those negative influences and be more ethical?
Self-awareness is key. Reflect on your actions and see if they match your values. Pay attention to those gut feelings that tell you something's wrong. In groups or at work, encourage open discussion and dissenting opinions. Make it safe for people to speak up. Having clear ethical guidelines and independent oversight helps too. And perhaps most importantly, leaders need to be ethical role models. When those in charge walk the talk, it sets the tone for everyone else. And finally, try to be more empathetic. Try to understand different perspectives, even if you disagree.
It all comes down to building a culture of ethics, right?
Yeah.
And your example of whistleblowing in healthcare really hit home. It's so hard to speak up, even when you know something's wrong, but sometimes it's crucial.
Absolutely. The situation has a huge impact on us. And understanding social forces helps us make better choices and promote ethical actions, both in our personal lives and in our communities.
So from our social world, let's jump to one that's become a huge part of our lives, the digital age. All this tech stuff, smartphones, social media, it's super convenient, but it's also raising some big questions about how it affects our minds, especially our mental health and attention spans.
No doubt. And Jean Twenge's research on social media and teenagers is super important here. She's done a lot of work on how it's linked to anxiety and depression.
I've heard some of that.
Yeah.
What are the key takeaways?
Well, she's found a worrying trend. Teen anxiety and depression rates have been climbing right alongside the rise of smartphones and social media. She thinks there are a few reasons. There's the constant comparing ourselves to others online, the messed up sleep schedules from late-night scrolling, and less face-to-face interaction, which can lead to loneliness, even though we're all connected online.
It's like we're constantly bombarded with everyone else's highlight reel, which can make us feel inadequate. And that sleep disruption is definitely not just a teen problem. What about self-esteem?
Social media is all about those likes and comments, and those can become tied to how people, even adults, feel about themselves. Every notification feels like validation, and when those are missing, it can feel like rejection. It creates a fragile sense of self-worth that depends on what's happening online.
It's like our self-image becomes too dependent on those digital metrics. So what about the brain science? What does the research say about smartphone addiction and attention spans?
Neuroscientists have found that dopamine, the brain chemical linked to pleasure and reward, plays a big role in that compulsive phone checking we all do. Every notification, every new post, it gives you a little dopamine hit, which makes you want to check again and again. And this constant stimulation can really mess with our attention.
So it's like those slot machines that keep you hooked with those intermittent rewards.
Exactly. And this affects us in a bunch of ways. There's task switching, where we're constantly jumping between different things, which makes it harder to focus deeply on any one thing. Our attention spans seem to be shrinking, and we're more easily distracted. Multitasking might feel efficient, but it actually makes us less productive and more prone to errors.
So it's not just about kids being glued to their phones. This is impacting all of us. Our ability to work, learn, even just have a conversation without getting sidetracked.
Exactly. So what can we do about it? First, set boundaries with technology. Create no phone zones, times when you completely unplug. Even short breaks can help.
Like a digital detox.
Exactly. And try to be more mindful about your tech use. Track your screen time. Pause before you automatically open an app. Ask yourself, do I really need to check this right now?
It's about being intentional, not just letting those notifications control us.
Right. And be more intentional about social media, too. Curate your feed, unfollow accounts that make you feel bad, and set specific times to check in instead of constantly scrolling. Prioritize those real-life connections, make time for in-person interactions, offline activities, all that good stuff.
So basically reclaim control over our tech instead of letting it control us.
Exactly. Our tech can be amazing, but we need to use it in a way that supports our well-being, not undermines it.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. From memory and decision-making to learning, happiness, the workings of our brains, our social world, and now the digital age. It's amazing how all these areas are interconnected.
Totally. And there's a common thread running through all of it, right? It's about understanding ourselves better, both the strengths and the weaknesses, and using that knowledge to make more intentional choices, to build a life that's more fulfilling, more resilient.
It's about taking control, not just being swept along by external forces or by our own automatic reactions. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some final takeaways you'd leave our listeners with?
Well, first, remember that your memory isn't perfect. It's constantly being shaped and reshaped, so be aware of those potential biases. When making decisions, consider both your present experience and your future memories, not just one or the other. And those learning principles, they're not just for school. Use them to build good habits and break bad ones. Understand your rewards, your triggers, set up your environment for success.
And don't forget the power of positive psychology. Practice gratitude. Find your flow. Build those strong relationships. Seek meaning and purpose in what you do.
Absolutely. And be mindful of your social world. It exerts a powerful influence, sometimes for the better, sometimes not. Be self-aware. Speak up when something's wrong. Cultivate ethical leadership. And finally, in this digital age, remember that you're in control. Set boundaries, be mindful of your tech use, and prioritize those real-life connections.
Wow, that's a lot to chew on, but it's all incredibly valuable stuff. Thanks for taking us on this deep dive. Any final thoughts for our listeners, something to ponder as they go about their day?
Sure. We've talked about how easily our memories can be distorted, how our environments shape us, how technology is changing our brains. But here's something to think about. If all those things are true, if we're so easily influenced, then imagine the power we have to intentionally shape our own minds, to create the kind of people we want to be. That's the real potential of psychology. It's not just about understanding, it's about transformation.
That's a great note to end on. Understanding is the first step, but taking action is what really makes the difference. So, to all our listeners out there, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep pushing yourselves to grow.
Exactly. It's an ongoing journey, and it's well worth the effort.
Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you next time on our next Deep Dive.